The lawyer didn't even look her in the eye. He just held out the envelope, kept his face blank and waited. Amelia stood there in the pouring rain, 3 days after pushing 2 babies into the world. Her body still aching, her hospital bracelet still on her wrist, and she already knew what was inside before she even opened it. She knew because Min-soo hadn't visited once. Not once in 3 days. She knew because his phone went straight to voicemail 14 times. She knew because Dae-young had shown up that morning with cash in an envelope and couldn't look her in the face either. She opened it anyway. And right there in the rain, holding divorce papers with shaking hands, Amelia finally understood. The man she had starved herself for. The man she had defended against his own family. The man she had believed in when he had absolutely nothing, had already moved on. He just forgot to tell her. Hello besties, welcome to Afro-Korean Tales. Please like, share and subscribe. Comment what time you are watching and also turn on the notification button, so you won't miss out on more intense stories like this. This is the story of Amelia Carter and Min-soo Park. A story about what happens when one person loves with everything they have, and the other person takes that love, uses it like fuel to rebuild their life, and then drives away without looking back. This is a story about betrayal so cold it will make your chest tight. About survival so quiet it will make you want to stand up and clap. And about karma, the kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that just shows up one day, looks you in the eye, and collects everything that is owed. Stay with this story until the very end, because the ending is not what you think it is. Let's go back to the beginning. Seoul. For years before those divorce papers. A Tuesday night in November, cold enough to see your breath, in a part of the city that the nice maps didn't show. Amelia Carter was 26 years old, working a double shift at a small international restaurant near Itaewon, the kind of place that stayed open past midnight, because the people who needed it most didn't come out until the rest of the world went to sleep. She had been in Seoul for 2 years at that point, teaching English by day and waitressing by night, sending money back to her mother Grace in Atlanta every month without fail, living in a small apartment that she shared with her best friend Zara Okafor, a loud, sharp, deeply loving Nigerian woman who had come to Seoul to do her nursing residency and never quite left. Amelia was tall, with deep brown skin and natural hair she kept pressed into a bun when she was working because her manager, a short Korean man named Mr. Cho, said it was more professional. She didn't argue. She needed the job. She had a quiet kind of beauty that people noticed slowly. Not the kind that hit you immediately, but the kind that made you keep looking, keep watching, keep trying to figure out what exactly it was about her face that made it so difficult to look away. Her eyes were steady. That was it. Even when things were hard, her eyes were always steady. Min-soo Park walked into that restaurant at 11:45 on a Tuesday night with a split lip, a torn jacket, and exactly one person with him. Dae-young, his right hand, his oldest friend, a stocky, quiet Korean man who looked like he hadn't slept in several days. Min-soo sat down at the corner table, the one near the back that Amelia always said had bad energy because the light above it flickered. He didn't look at the menu. He just sat there staring at the table, like it owed him something. Amelia walked over with her notepad. "What can I get you?" she asked. Min-soo looked up. He had sharp features, a jaw that looked like it had been cut rather than grown, dark eyes with something heavy sitting behind them, and a small scar above his left eyebrow that was still fresh then, still slightly raised. He looked at her for a second like he was surprised she had spoken. Then he said, "Just water." "Just water," Amelia repeated, writing it down seriously, because she was that kind of person. She treated everyone's order the same, whether it was a full meal or a single glass of water. Dae-young leaned forward. "Can we also get some of that spicy rice cake? And maybe the kimchi jjigae?" "Of course," Amelia said, and walked back to the kitchen. She brought the water first. Set it down carefully. Min-soo was staring at his phone, and she noticed, not in a nosy way, just the way you notice things when you're paying attention, that his hands were shaking slightly. Not from the cold. From something else. Something internal. She didn't say anything. She went back to her other tables. But when she brought the food 20 minutes later and set it down, Min-soo looked up again and this time he said, "Thank you." Just that. 2 words. But he said it like he meant it in a way that went beyond the food, like he was thanking her for something she hadn't even done yet. "You're welcome," she said, and walked away. She didn't think much about it. Men came into that restaurant all the time with split lips and heavy eyes. Seoul was a big city. It carried a lot of weight. But then Dae-young called her over when they were leaving and pressed a tip into her hand that was 3 times the amount of the bill. And he said quietly, he doesn't eat much when things are bad. So thank you for bringing it anyway. Amelia looked down at the money, then backed up at Dae-young. Is he okay? She asked. And she genuinely wanted to know. Dae-young glanced back at Min-soo, who was already at the door, jacket still torn, back straight in a way that looked like it cost him something. He will be, Dae-young said. He just needs time. That was the first night. The second time Min-soo came in was a week later. Same corner table. Same flickering light. This time he came alone. And this time he ordered actual food, the bibimbap, and a bowl of soup, and when Amelia brought it he said without looking up, you remembered the extra gochujang last time. Nobody asked you to do that. Amelia paused. I noticed you used all of it on the rice cake. Figured you liked it spicy. He looked up then. Really looked at her. You pay attention. It's my job, she said simply. Most people do their job without paying attention, he said. She didn't have an answer for that, so she just smiled and went back to work. But she noticed that he ate the entire bowl that night. Every last bit. And when he left he nodded at her. Just one nod, small and quiet. And something about it felt like the beginning of something neither of them had planned. Over the next 6 weeks, Min-soo came in every Tuesday and sometimes Thursday. Always the corner table. Always ordering more than the first night, but never extravagantly. He started talking, slowly, carefully, the way a person talks when they haven't spoken freely in a long time. Amelia learned pieces of him the way you learn a difficult song, one line at a time. She learned that he was 30 years old, that he had grown up in a family with deep roots in organized crime in Seoul. The kind of family that ran things quietly, through connections and money and carefully maintained fear. That he had been next in line to lead that family's operations before everything collapsed around him 18 months ago. That a combination of betrayal from inside his own circle and pressure from a rival organization had cost him everything. His position, his resources, his reputation, and most of his people. That the torn jacket on that first Tuesday night was from a confrontation with 2 men who used to work for him, and had decided that a man with no power was a man worth disrespecting. He told her this not all at once but in fragments, over soup and rice and bad coffee, in a corner booth under a flickering light. And Amelia listened the way she did everything, steadily, without flinching, without the wide eyes and gasping that Min-soo had braced himself for every time he revealed another piece of the truth. You're not scared, he said one Thursday night about 6 weeks in. Of what? Amelia asked. Of what I just told you. About my family. About what I used to run. Amelia thought about it honestly. I grew up in Atlanta, she said. I've seen what organized families look like. I'm not naive about what that world is. She paused. But I'm sitting across from a man eating soup, not a man doing anything dangerous. So no, I'm not scared right now. Right now, he repeated. Right now, she confirmed. Ask me again if the situation changes. He almost smiled. It was the first time she had seen anything close to it on his face, and it changed him completely, softened the sharp jaw, lit something up behind those dark, heavy eyes. You're different, he said. I'm just honest, she said. Most people find that unusual. That was the night things shifted. Not dramatically, no grand declarations, no sudden romance. Just a shift, the way temperature shifts in a room when someone opens a window. Something came in. Something changed. By December they were meeting outside the restaurant. Walking through Itaewon on cold nights, Amelia in her big coat, and Min-soo in whatever he could afford, which was not much at that point. He was staying in a small room above a convenience store that his old Lieutenant Dae-young was paying for quietly, so that Min-soo's pride didn't have to know about it. He had almost nothing. A phone with a cracked screen, a bag of clothes, the clothes on his back, and a head full of plans that had nowhere to land yet. Zara, back in the apartment she shared with Amelia, had opinions. Amelia, she said one evening, sitting cross-legged on their small couch with a bowl of jollof rice balanced on her knee. This man is fine, I will give you that. The bone structure alone is doing things. But baby, he is a broke, former crime family man with a split lip and a cracked phone. I need you to think clearly. I am thinking clearly, Amelia said, pulling her hair out of its bun. Your eyes go soft when you talk about him, Zara said. That is not clear thinking. That is feelings. What's wrong with feelings? Zara pointed her fork. Nothing. Everything. Depends on the man. She ate a bite of rice. What does he actually want from his life? To rebuild, Amelia said. He wants to build something legitimate. Something real. He says he's done with the old way. Zara looked at her for a long moment. And you believe him? Amelia didn't answer immediately. She sat down on the other end of the couch and pulled her knees to her chest. I believe that he believes it, she said finally. Whether he can actually do it, that's something else. But yes, I believe he means it. Zara studied her best friend's face for a few seconds, and then sighed the long sigh of a woman who already knows she is going to be supportive no matter what. Okay, Zara said. But if this man breaks your heart, I am going to say things to him in Yoruba that cannot be translated. Amelia laughed. Actually laughed. The full kind. The kind that reached her eyes. And Zara smiled because it had been a while since she had heard that sound. By January, Amelia and Minsu were together. Not in a big announced way, just in the quiet certain way that two people who have been honest with each other from the beginning come together. She still worked her 2 jobs. He was starting to make small moves, meeting with people, trying to rebuild connections, working with Dae-young to identify which parts of his former network could still be trusted. It was slow, grinding, uncertain work. There were weeks when he had nothing. Weeks when Amelia quietly paid for their food, for his phone bill, for things he didn't ask for but clearly needed, in ways that didn't make him feel small, which was a skill in itself, because Minsu Park's pride was enormous and fragile, and she had to handle it carefully. You don't have to do this, he said one evening in February when she came home from her double shift and made dinner for both of them because he had been in meetings all day that had led nowhere. I know I don't have to, she said, plating the food. It doesn't bother you, he asked. That I can't, that I'm not. Minsu, she said quietly, setting a bowl in front of him. I'm not with you because of what you have. I'm with you because of who you are. Right now you don't have much. That doesn't change who you are to me. He looked at the food, then at her. Something moved across his face that he didn't have words for in Korean or English, and he picked up the bowl and started eating. But she noticed that his jaw was tight, the way it got when he was fighting something emotional down. And she knew that her words had landed somewhere deep. That was who they were in those early months. Quiet and real and genuinely good together. But there was one thing that was never quiet, never easy, never good. Mrs. Park. Soon-hee Park was 61 years old, small and elegant in the way of a woman who had spent decades making sure people never mistook softness for weakness. She had married into the Park family when she was 22 and had spent the 40 years since then managing it. The money, the relationships, the reputation, the image. She was the kind of woman who could say something devastating with a warm smile, who could make you feel welcomed and unwanted in the same breath, who kept her real feelings locked so far behind her eyes that you were never quite sure what you were actually looking at. She found out about Amelia in March, 2 months into the relationship, through a cousin who had seen them together in Itaewon. She called Minsu the same evening. Minsu told Amelia about the call the next morning. He sat across from her at their small kitchen table. They had moved in together by then, a slightly bigger apartment that they split the rent on. And he was very still in the way he got when something was difficult. My mother called, he said. Okay, Amelia said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. She knows about you. Okay. She said. He stopped, pressed his lips together. She said some things. About the relationship. About you specifically. Amelia looked at him steadily. Tell me exactly what she said. He met her eyes. She said that you are not suitable. That a Black American woman has no place in our family. That I am already in a weak position. And that being with someone like you will make rebuilding impossible, because the people I need to rebuild with will not respect it. He paused. She also said that Hyunji has been asking about me. My ex. Her family has money and connections that would help me and my mother thinks. Stop, Amelia said. Not loudly, just firmly. He stopped. She was quiet for a moment. Her eyes were steady, always those steady eyes, but he could see something moving beneath them. Not hurt. Not exactly. Something harder than hurt. What do you think? She asked. What? What do you think, Minsu? Not your mother. not the people you're trying to rebuild with. You. What do you think about what she said? He looked at her for a long moment. I think she is wrong, he said. About you. About what matters. I think she has spent so long looking at people as pieces in a game that she has forgotten how to see them as people. And Hyunji, that's over. It was over long before I met you. Amelia nodded slowly. She drank some coffee. She set the cup down. I need you to understand something, she said. I am not going anywhere because your mother doesn't like me. I am not going to make myself smaller or quieter, or different to fit what she thinks I should be. I will be respectful to her because that's who I am. But I will not disappear. She paused. But I also need you to understand. If the day ever comes when you let her voice get louder than yours, if you ever let her decide things for you without telling me, that day will be the last day. Not because I'm angry, but because I don't stay where I'm not chosen. Minsu reached across the table and put his hand over hers. I choose you, he said. Right now with nothing, I choose you. And she believed him. That was the thing about Amelia Carter. She wasn't naive. She wasn't a woman who believed blindly. She looked at evidence, she weighed words against actions, she paid attention. And in those early months and into that first year, Minsu Park's actions matched his words. He was honest with her. He communicated. He showed up. He worked through the difficulty of navigating his mother's hostility without throwing Amelia under the bus. When Mrs. Park called with barbed comments, he responded. When his family gathered and made it clear that Amelia was not welcome, he either brought her anyway or he went and came back and told her honestly what was said. Dae-young liked her. He made that clear in his quiet way, showing up with food sometimes, asking her genuine questions, treating her with the kind of easy respect that told her he had decided she was a real person. That mattered to Amelia more than she said out loud. The rebuilding was slow. Minsu was careful, more careful than he had been before, he told her, because before he had been arrogant, had trusted the wrong people, had moved too fast. Now he built slowly. I made connections quietly. Started with small legitimate businesses, a logistics company, a stake in a small property deal. Using money that Dae-young had managed to protect during the collapse, and using connections that Dae-young had maintained carefully. Amelia continued teaching and waitressing through most of that first year. She stopped waitressing in month 14 when Minsu finally had enough consistent income that she didn't need to, but she kept teaching because she loved it, and because she had started working on a curriculum project on the side, building supplemental English materials for Korean students that she had a quiet dream of turning into something real one day. She never talked about that dream loudly. She kept it in a notebook, worked on it in the evenings, and added to it piece by piece. Minsu knew about it. He had held the notebook once, flipped through it carefully and said, "This is good, Amelia. This is really good." And she smiled and said, "Maybe one day." And he had said, "Not maybe. One day for sure." And she had believed that too. The first year turned into the second year. Minsu's businesses were growing. Not explosively but solidly. The kind of growth that doesn't make noise but builds real foundations. He had brought 3 more people into his core circle by then, men he trusted, men who had proven themselves during the difficult period. Dae-young remained at the center of everything, the person Minsu trusted most in any room. And with the growth came Mrs. Park. She didn't come loudly. That was never her style. She came the way she always came, elegantly, carefully, with a smile and a cup of tea and words that sounded reasonable until you thought about them for a moment too long. She started calling Minsu more frequently at the end of year 2. Amelia noticed. She didn't say much about it. It was his mother. It was his family. She understood that the relationship between a Korean son and his mother was layered and complex and not something she could or should try to dismantle. But she noticed the way his face got after certain calls. The way he got quieter. The way small distances opened up, like tiny cracks in good stone. She brought it up one evening in October of the second year. They were in the kitchen. The radio was on low. She was making jollof rice the way Zara had taught her because Minsu had decided at some point that he loved it. "Your mother called 3 times today," Amelia said. Not accusatory. Just observational. "I know," Minsu said. He was sitting at the table, jacket off, looking at papers. "Is everything okay?" "She wants me to come to a family dinner next week." "Okay," Amelia said carefully. "Are you going?" He was quiet for a second. She said, "She wants it to be family only." The kitchen was quiet except for the rice on the stove. Amelia stirred it slowly. "Family only," she repeated. "I told her no," he said immediately. "I told her you come or I don't come." She kept stirring. "And what did she say?" "She said that I was being stubborn and that I wasn't thinking about the bigger picture." He paused. "She mentioned Hyunji again. Said her family is invested in a project that could be beneficial." "She mentions Hyunji a lot," Amelia said. "Yes, she does. And what do you want to do for dinner?" "I want to go with you," he said. "And that's what we'll do." She turned and looked at him. He was already looking at her, that direct, honest look that had been one of the first things she had trusted about him. "Okay," she said. "Then that's what we'll do." They went to dinner. Mrs. Park received Amelia with that perfect warm cold smile. The one that looked like welcome but felt like a door being held open just slightly, so the guests would know they weren't truly inside. Mr. Park, Min-soo's father, a quiet, large-framed man who mostly existed in the background of his wife's life, shook Amelia's hand and said she was welcome, and Amelia believed he meant it, which made the evening both slightly better and slightly worse. There were 2 aunts, an uncle, and a cousin at that dinner. Nobody was overtly rude. Korean family dinners conducted by women like Mrs. Park didn't operate through rudeness. They operated through silence, through the careful non-mentioning of things, through the way questions were asked in ways that were not quite questions. The aunts spoke mostly to each other and to Min-soo, asking about the business, asking about his health, looking at Amelia with the polite blank attention of people who had been told to behave. The uncle ignored her almost entirely, which was actually the most comfortable thing about the evening. Mrs. Park, across the table, served food and smiled and said things like, "Amelia, you must find our winters so difficult, coming from America. And Min-soo tells me you teach English, how modest," in a voice like warm water over sharp glass. Amelia was gracious. She was warm. She answered every question with complete dignity, and she did not rise to a single piece of bait, which Amelia knew later from the look on Mrs. Park's face had both impressed and frustrated the woman. In the car going home, Min-soo reached over and took her hand. "You were perfect," he said. "I was myself," she said. "Same thing," he said. And she laughed. But something had changed after that dinner. Something small, difficult to name. Mrs. Park had seen Amelia up close now, had measured her. And Amelia, who paid attention to everything, understood that being measured by a woman like Mrs. Park was not a neutral event. Now let me tell you something, and I need you to really hear this. There are women in this world who destroy things not out of hate but out of strategy. Mrs. Park did not hate Amelia. She didn't have the energy for hate. What she had was a plan. A clear, patient, long-running plan for her son's life. Who he would be, what he would build, who he would build it with. And Amelia was simply not in that plan. Not because of who Amelia was as a person, but because of what Amelia represented. Autonomy. A son who made his own choices. A future that Mrs. Park could not fully control. That was the real issue. Not race alone. Though that was a piece of it, a real piece that Mrs. Park never said out loud but never needed to because it lived in every carefully chosen word. The deeper issue was control. Amelia was a woman that Min-soo had chosen freely, without permission, without guidance, without his mother's hand in it. And to Mrs. Park, that was the unforgivable thing. So she worked. Quietly, consistently, without urgency. Over the following months she chipped away. A comment here about Hyunji's family's newest project. A concern there about what certain business associates thought. A gentle repeated suggestion that Min-soo needed a partner who understood his world fully, who had roots in it, who could stand beside him in rooms that required a certain kind of presence. Min-soo pushed back. Consistently at first, firmly, with Amelia's words always somewhere in his chest. But here is the thing about water on stone. It doesn't move the stone in one day. It moves it across years. And Mrs. Park was patient. Meanwhile, Amelia noticed the shifts. She noticed the way certain conversations became slightly shorter. The way Min-soo sometimes answered his mother's calls in the other room now, which he had never done before. The way when she brought it up gently, he would reassure her quickly, too quickly, in a way that resolved nothing but closed the conversation. She told Zara one Sunday afternoon, sitting in Zara's new apartment, The one she had moved into when her residency became a full-time nursing position at a hospital in Mapo. Something is shifting, Amelia said. Zara was painting her nails, a brilliant orange. She looked up. What kind of shifting? Small things. The way he takes his mother's calls. The way he talked about a business meeting last week. He used to tell me everything about those meetings. Now he mentioned it afterward like it was an afterthought. Zara was quiet for a moment, looking at her nails. Have you asked him directly? I've brought it up. He tells me I'm reading into it. Are you? Amelia looked at her hands. No, she said. I don't think I am. Zara blew on her nails. Then keep your eyes open, she said. Not wide and scared. Just open. I'm not scared, Amelia said. Zara looked at her for a second. No. You're not. That's actually what worries me about you sometimes. She paused. You're so steady that sometimes I think you absorb things that should be pushing you back. Amelia thought about that for a long time after she went home. Year 3. Minsu's business had grown considerably. He had moved from logistics and small property into a broader network, security contracting, import management, a stake in a hospitality group. None of it was explicitly what his family had done before, but the structure was familiar. Connections, leverage, relationships maintained through a combination of respect and understanding. He dressed better now. The apartment they shared had been replaced by a house in a quieter part of the city, and Amelia had made it genuinely home. Her touches everywhere, warm colors, books, the smell of good food. A small corner where she kept working on her curriculum project which had grown considerably, and was starting to look like something real. She was happy, genuinely happy. Despite the undercurrent of Mrs. Park, despite the occasional distance in Minsu, the weight of their daily life was good. They cooked together, they talked late into evenings, they argued sometimes in the productive way of two people who know each other well enough to say difficult things. They moved through the world as partners in the truest sense. And then she got pregnant. The news came on a Wednesday morning in late spring year 3. Amelia sat on the edge of the bath for a long time after seeing the test, just breathing. Then she walked out into the bedroom where Minsu was getting dressed for a meeting, and she stood in the doorway and looked at him. He looked up from his tie. Read her face in the way he had gotten very good at over 3 years. His hand stilled. What is it? He said quietly. She told him. His face moved through several things very fast. Surprise, a flash of something like fear, then something slow and warm that spread across his features and changed them. He crossed the room in 3 steps and held her. Just held her, both hands on her back, his face in her hair. Okay, he said. His voice was thick. Okay, she said, pulling back to look at him. More than okay, he said. More than okay, Amelia. They held each other for a long time in the quiet morning. He told Dae-young that afternoon. Dae-young, who had been present for so much of the journey, who knew Amelia almost as well as he knew Minsu. Dae-young's face did something unusual when he heard the news. His jaw tightened slightly before it softened into the smile he offered. Minsu didn't notice. But if Amelia had been there, she would have noticed, because she noticed everything. Minsu told his mother 3 days later. The call lasted 45 minutes. Amelia was in the next room grading English papers and couldn't hear the words but could hear the rhythm. The long silences, the moments of Minsu's voice going firm, then quieter. The one moment where it rose slightly before dropping back down. When he came out of the room his face was carefully neutral in the way it only got when something had cost him more than he wanted to show. How did she take it? Amelia asked. He sat down. She needs time, he said. That's not an answer, Amelia said. He looked at her. She said that before we go further with this, there are things that need to be formalized. Between us. That a child needs clarity about who its parents are, and what their relationship is. Amelia looked at him steadily. She's talking about marriage. Yes. And what do you think about that? He was quiet for a moment. I think that I have wanted to marry you for over a year, he said. And that I have been trying to find the right moment to say it in a way that had nothing to do with my mother or pressure or any of this. He looked genuinely troubled. I didn't want it to come from her. But it did, Amelia said. Not angry. Just true. Yes, he said. But the feeling didn't. The feeling is mine. It's been mine for a long time. She studied him. Those steady eyes of hers. taking in every detail of his face. Ask me then, she said. Right now. No ring, no planning, no occasion. Just ask me. He looked at her for a moment. Then he got up from the chair, and he knelt on one knee right there in their living room. No ring, no ceremony, just him and her and the quiet evening, and he said, Amelia Carter, will you marry me? Not because of the baby. Not because of my mother. Because I cannot imagine building anything that matters without you in it. If you're still with me, if you're following Amelia and Minsu's journey and eager to see what happens next, please hit that subscribe button. I'm putting my all into this story, and your support truly means the world to me. Drop a comment with your thoughts on what's coming up, let me know where you're watching from and the time, and turn on notifications so you won't miss a thing. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's next. And if you don't subscribe, you'll be missing out on the most thrilling part of the story, and you'll wish you hadn't. Don't let that be you.